I'm Chad.Taylor.Psychotherapist, author of It's You, Oh Fuck, It's Me. This podcast is about relationships, self-avoidance, and the shit we pretend isn't us. No tips, no fixing, just real conversations. So today I've got Amy here with me. Amy had read my book and reached out through an email and wanted to sit in a conversation. I think it's her first time being on a podcast, as with most of my guests. And I was going to ask Amy, what was something from the book that stood out for you?
Hey guys, I'm Amy and I have read the book and I absolutely loved it. Something major that I took away from it that I still currently do in my life now, and that is judging other people.
Okay. And how does that play out for you? There's a lot of content in that book. Why was it that one that do you think landed?
Because it's something that I struggle with in my day-to-day life. I've grown up in a home that is very judgy between mum and dad. They judge everyone and everything. So I feel like that's something that I took on and just made as my personality. And yeah.
And you wouldn't be the first one, right? Like I think looking at most, say if I go downstairs to the coffee shop here under my office, if I purely went there with the purpose to eavesdrop, I think most people in a conversation sitting there having coffee would be telling a story about someone as being the villain and someone being the victim and them being the victim, and whether it's that the postman turned up late or someone stole their car park, or even closer to home, their sister did this or their brother did this or their boss did this. I think it's pretty natural these days that we judge, which is really another form of projection.
Definitely. I know. I feel like I've done that my whole entire life. So to read the book, and I have been in therapy as well. So after years of therapy and you read the book, you think I've gotten to this point where now I don't do that. But the book actually gives you a bit of a reflection, and I still do that. And I just don't notice that I do it as much, but I do still judge.
You and me both. I could come on here and talk a lot about where I do it. It happened on the weekend for me with my partner about a certain topic. The good thing about it is I think the first step to change is awareness.
Yeah.
If we're not aware of if we're not aware the problem exists, and we live in a world at the moment where it's very hard to own your own shit. You've only got to jump on social media to see that. We've got terms like reactive anger, which really means it's a justification to when you pushed me and I got angry, and it's a justification for me acting badly, which is just bullshit. And that was the purpose of the book, because I went for so many years doing that in my own life. So
Yeah.
let's go back to now, like those times where we do catch ourselves. What's that like to sit in that when it's happening for you?
It feels shit to sit in it, especially because you're aware of yourself doing it. So, for example, I judge. So so for example, I'm on the phone to someone, as I'm on the phone a lot for my job, and someone will ring and they'll be in a bad mood, and then straight away I'm judging them, thinking, oh, what a prick, oh, what an asshole. And you never know. I don't know what they've had in their day. They could have just found out their mum has terminal cancer. But for me, I'm straight away, fuck them, when I shouldn't be like that. But it's a straight away judgment that I have to then catch myself. And it's not necessarily until after I've judged that I will catch myself and I go, oh, you just judged them. But it's sometimes I don't catch myself before. It's sometimes after or mid doing it. And then I have to pull back and realize that I've done it.
And the best thing is about that is you're actually catching yourself. Most of us are out there on autopilot. We actually truly believe, like I wrote in the book, we truly believe if we got hooked up to a lie detector, which said, if you get this wrong, you're going to get electrocuted to death, most people would actually end up electrocuted to death, because that egocentric belief in us is so strong that we do really believe that they're the problem. And it serves us too, because it keeps us safe.
Protection.
No. You probably notice this. Does it repeat in more areas than just intimate relationships? Like, do you notice it? Where would you notice this the most, do you think? I suppose what I'm asking is, who gets the worst version of this?
Probably my partner, definitely, because he's the most, I feel most comfortable and most safe with my partner. And I know that he'll always have my back, and the next day and the next day. So I feel that he is the person who I seem to be the most, not judgmental of him. Well, I actually am judgmental of him. So, yeah. he gets the worst version of me.
And I think if we were truthful, we're all judgmental of everybody, right? Like, it takes a lot not to judge. And I think I'm openly in therapy as well. I've been in therapy for over half my life.
Yeah.
And then, funnily enough, I became a therapist. I think the way of life should have been us being in therapy. There's always a shaman or a medicine woman or a medicine man or a shamaness or somebody that pointed these things out to us that said, hey, look, it's okay to admit that you judge people because we all do. It's a safety mechanism. It keeps us safe. You know, what isn't normal is for us to say openly, and my partner gets the worst of me. And how do you think, I'm sure he'll probably listen to this, how do you think he'd feel hearing that?
He would definitely know it's true. That's why we love each other.
Exactly. Do you think there'd be any healing for him hearing that you're aware of that and it's something you want to work on publicly to hear that?
I think so. I think the first step in anything is admitting there's a problem or admitting you've done the wrong thing, anything in life. You can't get to the next stage of asking for help if you haven't admitted there's a problem.
Yeah. And if you read my book, you'd know that I'm in addiction recovery. And this first step to recovery is admitting we're powerless over whatever that behavior or that thought was, because I'm not here to talk about addiction, but we are addicted to our way of thinking, right? This is this exact thing.
Yep, definitely. And it's the way our society is after all these years. And it just, especially with the power of social media now, everything's at your fingers and everything is judging or comparing and what's this person doing and how can I look at what my life is doing in comparison to theirs and what can I do more and blah, 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 blah. And it's judging all the time. And yeah, I feel like a lot of it is driven by social media.
Yeah, and things like ChatGTP. I'm not going to ask you what you do for work because that's not important for this, because this is somewhat anonymity in this podcast. But say even when we use ChatGTP and things like that now, like I know the way that affirms us, it's creating us to be more righteous and more right. Is that something that you have to use in your work?
Yes, I do. I use that often. And at the start, I remember saying this thing, AI, is going to end up taking over my job and it's going to take over the world and blah, 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 blah. Now, here I am using it every day. So that's another judgment that's come to fruition. And now I actually use the thing I've dodged. So that's another way of bringing it to reality.
But it sounds to me like you're using it consciously, right? Like if you're using it in lieu of reading books and therapy, and because it'll tell you if you went to it with a problem, you say if your partner had done something to you that you were feeling like you wanted to judge him about, if you went to say ChatGTP or Gemini or Grok or one of these things, really, it's hard to say. I even use the word guys because I use mine a bit for marketing, and it almost, it almost feels like an entity, even though it's a robot. But what I'm saying, it makes me feel pretty good.
It does. It justifies your existence for that section. Like I've used it in an argument, hand on heart. We've all used it, and it's just being conscious about using it, like you said.
Yeah. It's been really good to chat to people who are, this is what I want for this podcast, not anything groundbreaking, no insights of, I hear that enough in, say, Alcoholics Anonymous, right? It's almost like you hear the war story and then you hear the sobriety and then you hear, and now I live on the biggest house on the hill in the street. Like, it's not about that. This podcast isn't about that. It's more about what's the cost and what's it like. And I asked that question already, but I suppose we're pretty much getting to the end because it's short and sharp. Everybody's got busy lives, and as much as I love big, long podcasts, it's like, who the fuck's got 2 hours to listen to this? If we can get this wrapped up in 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes at most, what does this cost you? Okay, what would it cost you to not keep trying to improve this? What does life look like for you if you don't keep trying to improve this?
You're just going to run around for the rest of your life on autopilot, and how can you sit there and raise children, be a good parent, grandparent, etc., be a good work colleague, friend, if you're running around with your head in the sand, being an unconscious person? Like, don't get me wrong, we all fall into unconsciousness. I do it myself. I'm sure you do it too, Chad. But at the end of the day, we have a right to ourselves and to other people around us to make sure that we are trying to be the best version of ourselves, whether that's reading books or podcasting or going to therapy or whatever it is that fills your cup, but making sure that cup is feeding you the right information.
From what I'm hearing from you, there's no real point in staying there. You're not protecting much by not doing this work, from what I can hear.
Correct. Oh, you'd be silly not to do the work, and you'd be silly to turn a blind eye to everything, because it's your behavior, it's how you are in the world. You want to try and be the best version of yourself.
Yeah. And I know if you're anything like me, there's times where I'll almost be mid-argument, and I know mid-argument that I'm almost possessed by what I'd like to call the black wolf, right? That I'm not there anymore and this entity's there, and I know I'm acting like a prick. I know that. Does that happen to you, and what's that like? And it's confronting, right? It's confronting when you feel like that.
Totally. It happened just to me on the weekend, actually. I met a lady and she gave me an energy and I had to try and match her energy back. Yeah, if you're not, how do I say it? If you're not actively conscious about your thoughts, you would just be splitting out crap that this lady would have just been like, oh, no, thanks, I don't want to deal with you. So you've got to consciously change your behavior to suit, not to suit a person, but match their energy and give them what they're giving you. And I feel like I'm very passionate about that. And yeah, that's mostly what I can say about that.
It's good to hear. And for me, it's like if I get a Christian come into my therapy room, they might leave thinking I'm a Christian, because even though I'm not anything, right? I'm pretty well read and I learn a lot because I'm passionate. But exactly that. Even Jesus and Dalai Lama talked about the best way to dismantle something is from the inside. In other words, learn the rules well so you know how to break them. So what I'm saying with that is in our work roles and things like that, it's a bit like if I'm working with a client who is challenging me and isn't open to change, it's really hard work. So what I do is, rather than create a drama and judge them, I will just tell them that I don't really have the right skills for them and that I'm probably not a good fit and I'm doing them an injustice. That's consciousness. From what I hear with you, it's a bit like that. It's like, rather than get myself worked up, I'll try and match that energy. And if it's not my energy, rather than judge them for it, I will just try and just be conscious in what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Yeah. So what I try and do at the end of this podcast, and it's nothing new because it's done on other ones, is the last guest actually leaves something for the next guest, right? So my last guest was Sophie, which, if you listen to my last podcast, is my partner, and she spoke about mirroring and how, she struggled with mirroring throughout her life. So when I asked her what's something you'd like to leave for the next guest, her reply was, I'll frame it as a question to whoever listens to this. Have you, or where have you mirrored today? And what is the consequence of that?
I haven't mirrored today. Well, not that I'm aware of, that I can remember. But I did on the weekend, as I mentioned, about that lady that I had met, mirrored the same energy because it just flows a lot better. And yeah, at the end of the day, people match energy with energy. So if you're putting out that same energy, she can match and grab onto that. And yeah, that's how I with mirroring, that's something that I showed on the weekend. But I'm sure there's been times that I haven't mirrored and I found myself in a bit of a sticky situation. That was probably before unconsciousness.
Yeah, and sometimes mirroring can be good or bad, right? Like if we're mirroring and it makes us unconscious, that's as what Sophie spoke about, is a negative mirroring. Or also we can have a positive mirroring, right? And especially when we're talking about work, we have to have a positive mirroring. Otherwise, it doesn't really work.
That's right, yeah.
So we're almost at the end. Before we finish, I want you, and I'm putting you on the spot here, I want you to leave one thing for the next person. It could be a question. It could be a statement. It could be a challenge. One sentence with no explaining.
The next time you think about judging somebody, stop, turn it around and ask yourself that question. Why am I about to judge them? That's it.
We're going to leave it there. And it was so good chatting to you. Hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.